Hey guys, uh, there's this stereotype of a prepper, and it's some vaguely overweight white guy wearing bad camis, just covered over in gear. You know, he's got flak jackets and Kevlars and guns and bullets, and he's got all this food stored. But that's not really being prepared. There's nothing wrong with that, by the way. I mean, that's fine. That's certainly a level of it. But if you think about being prepared for anything that might possibly happen, that has to involve uh, some sort of system of providing for yourself. And the best way to do that is not to look, at hoarding technology and batteries and everything, but that's to look at the past. And in the past, the single most important items for civilization is salt. There's been nothing more important than salt. There was a time in history when it was literally worth its weight in gold. You would trade equal amounts of salt for equal amounts of gold. There's been wars fought over salt. In fact, the American Revolution had a lot to do with taxation on salt. The French Revolution had a lot to do with the taxation on salt. Gandhi, when Gandhi sort of kicked off his big, huge a revolt in India against Britain, he did it by leading a bunch of people down to the seashore to make salt out of the water there and bypass the British tax on salt. And that's sort of what helped spark the revolution there in India. It wasn't a revolution, but that's what helped kickstart Gandhi's whole movement in Italy. Holy smokes, India. So salt is vitally important. Without salt, you are reduced to being a hunter-gatherer, because salt does not appear in plant fibers at very high amounts. It does appear in animal flesh, meat. So that if you don't have a source of salt, then you have to have a high meat diet, and you got to eat some of the weirder parts of the animal. Nothing wrong with that, but if you want to be stationary, if you want to stay in one place and build a home and a life, then you've got to have salt. And there is no such thing as having too much salt. You cannot have enough salt. That's why it's one of our basic things we stockpile. We don't have a lot. We certainly don't have as much as I'd like. Like I said, it's impossible to have as much as you want, because it's really hard to come by. It's not readily available in the environment, unless you live by the ocean or a hot spring, or you just happen to live next door to a salt mine. You have to have a source for salt, and I don't care how much you store. Eventually, you're going to run out, and you have to have more. The establishment of salt trade lines would actually be the first sign of a re-emerging trade or an economy. So I appreciate that you want chem lights, and you want to stockpile toilet paper, and you want MREs, and you want batteries. I say batteries, bullets, and all this high-tech stuff. But when it boils down to it, the most important thing you can have, from a homestead standpoint, from the idea of let's make our own way in the world, and let's produce for ourselves and cure our harvest, is you got to have salt. It is a necessary nutrient, or not a nutrient, I'm sorry, it's a necessary element for survival. It's actually one of the 5 basic tastes, which I didn't realize this until I just started looking into it. There is a taste for saltiness. Obviously, you can taste salt, but it's like a basic. It's like not a combination of anything else. So it's a basic human need. There's a couple of different things to keep in mind when you're stockpiling salt. Iodized salt is a really good idea. I know there's a lot of conspiracy theories out there about what the iodine does and get pure salt. But if you're talking about survival situation or it just doesn't hurt to have that extra iodine. Iodine is a trace element. Your body needs it. It can affect your health. It can affect your children's health and the development of their brain. There's just no reason not to get iodized salt. Whatever harm that iodine could possibly be doing to you is much less than what an iodine deficiency would do to you or your children. The one thing about iodized salt is that when you're preserving foods, it can give it a purplish coloring. It supposedly doesn't affect the taste, but it can color it a little bit. If you don't like that, if you just don't want iodized salt, you got to get pickling salt, which is just salt without the iodine, and it's used in food preservation, which is the most important aspect of having salt, is preserving your food. You don't really need to flavor your food with salt at the dinner table, even though I have to admit I'm very guilty of that. But you need it for food preservation, especially for preserving meats. It gets very, very difficult to preserve meats without electricity or without salt. Your only options become drying, and even drying is much more effective with salt. Of course, you can brine cure a lot of things, vegetables. You add it to butter to make butter last longer. There's all sorts of things you can do with salt. As Christians, we're commanded to be the salt of the earth. Obviously, hoarding salt doesn't help you with that at all. But there's just this idea of how important salt is. You find the evidence of salt production at all the earliest stages of human development. 8,000 years ago, there's evidence that they were producing salt in Romania. 6,000 years ago in China. You don't have human development. You don't have economic activity. You don't have anything more than hunter-gatherer societies without salt. I'm sure there's exceptions, but for the most part, no salt, no society. So stop worrying about batteries. They're all going to go dead eventually anyway, if things get as bad as they might. Stop worrying about, I'll be honest with you, bullets. You can never have enough bullets either. But if you don't have enough salt, don't tell me that you have a year's worth of food and some seeds stored, and your goal is to live off your stored food until you get your first harvest in. If you don't have enough salt set by to preserve that harvest, you gotta have salt. How much salt is enough? There is no such thing as enough salt. If you have a 50-gallon barrel filled with salt, you could relax a little bit. But anything less than that, if what you think is going to happen is there's going to be a major disruption, and that you're going to have to grow your own food for a significant period of time, anything less than a 50-gallon barrel full with salt, which I'm not at yet, is not enough, or a definite supply of where you can get more. Like I say, if there's going to be any human activity at all, there will be some form of salt production, but the question becomes, how long will it be before it gets to you, and how expensive will it be? Because if society goes back to the way it's been in the past, salt was literally as valuable as gold. So in that case, it just takes on great barter possibilities too. If you've got a bunch of excess salt, not that there is such a thing as excess salt, you're actually a wealthy man. And you can trade and you can barter and provide for your family. So there you go. No one talks about it. It's one of those things. We obsess over what the right caliber is for a survival rifle and how many guns do you actually need. But the truth of the matter is, something as simple as salt will, you would trade all those guns and all those bullets for maybe this much salt. Think about it. This much gold, well, this is 26 ounces. So gold is worth $1,300 an ounce right now. So literally by historical norms, I'm trying to do the math in my head, 26 by 13. This is $35,000 worth of gold by historic norms. $35,000 worth of gold right here. I don't know why you wouldn't hoard that. As much of this as you can get your hands on. You need it for survival, and if society collapses to the point where it might not, you would be a wealthy, wealthy, wealthy man if you had a barrel of salt stored somewhere. You'd also be a target now, mind you. You're gonna, that much wealth. Think about it, $35,000. While we were sitting here, I've just poured out $350,000 worth of salt by historical norms. You start having security issues, and then you can talk about your guns and your bullets. Don't waste my time with batteries. If you really think society is going to collapse to the point where there's a total meltdown and no economic activity, why batteries? Why? Again, guns and bullets are always useful, but what are you guarding with all those guns and all those bullets if you don't have the means to support life, of which salt is a basic element, or you don't have anything worth taking? Because you know what? No one wants all your used batteries. No one's going to come attack your family to get all your dead AA batteries, or all the little devices you've stored that require all your dead AA batteries, and your solar panels that degrade over time. But if things really do get that bad, people will be willing to do anything for $35,000 worth of $35,000 worth of salt, guys. I hadn't thought about that till just now when I was looking at it. You need to put some of this up. Thanks.